growth opportunities in data engineering roles compared to software development?
Do look at data engineering as like a very fancy thing and it's like a new field which is coming up with. But there are challenges here, but it's very exciting space. Processing for the data cannot be done locally. That is one of the biggest challenges of the data engineering space as well.
One is data engineering is just a fancy name for ETL.
This is actually
Hello everyone, we are back with another exciting episode, and today we have Pratik with us. He's a data engineer at Microsoft with total 8 years of experience, 4 years in software developer, and then he switched to data engineering domain. He began his career at Samsung and later on he successfully switched to Microsoft. In this video, we are going to cover everything you need to know to become data engineer in top companies like Microsoft. So without any further delay, let's dive into the podcast. Hi Pratik.
Hi Shruti.
Hi, so we are really excited to have you here at our studio. So before we move forward with this podcast, I would like you to please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah. So I'm Pratik. I'm currently working as a data engineer too at Microsoft. I started my journey from a tier 2 college and then I got into Samsung where I was working on customizing mobile operating system for Verizon carrier. And then I worked on there in Samsung on a number of flagship projects, like flagship mobile phone projects. But later on, I felt like my thirst for knowledge and my challenges were not enough there, and I transitioned to Microsoft. As soon as I got into the Microsoft, I started working on data, and then over that time, I have been in this journey of learning about data and working on data products.
Great. So what made you switch to data engineering domain?
So it's a funny story. I actually didn't look into transitioning into specifically data engineering role. I was just looking for a change from my current role, which was more into about operating system, about mobile operating system, and I wanted to switch to a domain, maybe a backend role or something which was like not limited to just one company, right? So, but when I got into Microsoft, I got into a team which was working on data, on a big data. They were working and they were using big data technologies, and then I started slowly learning about those things, and it got me really interested. And then I again switched to a different team, and there I was like full blown into a data engineering role, and we were properly working on technologies like Spark and all those common things that we hear in data engineering. We started working on that, and I'm really excited on what I'm working on today.
Very nice, very happy for you. So how does your typical day at Microsoft looks like?
Oh, it actually looks pretty normal if you look at from the outside. So I have a schedule. I log in early and then log out early as well on time. So I fix my working hours. So I log in at 9 a.m. Look at my emails, any conversation that happened over the night while I was away. After that, I go to the board that I have where we get all the tasks assigned. Then I look at what are the tasks that I have to do, and then I plan out my day. Some days I might already have like meeting schedule on that day, and some meetings may involve like interviews as well. So I mostly keep my focus working hours in the before lunch, and then post lunch I take any meetings that we have, and then I wrap up the day for the next day.
Great. So before we move further, काफी लोगों को लगता है data engineering का role होता है that pulling data from one place and then pushing it to somewhere else. So
Correct.
Can you please tell us what is the exact role of data engineer?
Absolutely. So a lot of people do actually think that data engineering role is just about building data pipelines, which is just like moving data from one place to another. That's what we call data ingestion or data movement pipelines. But that's very short-sighted view of what a data engineering role is. A lot part of that includes about how do you process the data, and building those pipelines which actually process the data is really hard because that depends on the volume of the data that we have, the variety of the data that we have, and the veracity, like how fast we are getting that data. So depending on that, the complexity can increase. And processing that huge data, for processing that, we have to build some data platforms which can actually process those data. So a lot of data engineering role actually involves a lot of software engineering skills, where we are thinking about how do we build big data platform processing systems, and then writing the code to actually process the data, move the data here around, and then making sure that those pipelines, they run reliably every day.
Yeah, nice. So I'm pretty sure people who are thinking to switch in data, data engineering domains, they have this question that what are the growth opportunities in data engineering roles compared to software development?
Absolutely.
So what do you have to say about it?
That's actually a very good question, because a lot of people do look at data engineering as like a very fancy thing, and it's like a new field which is coming up with. They think like, they should jump the ship. But there are challenges here, but it's very exciting space. And what it so as a funny thing, right? It started. There have been various versions of a data engineering role in the past. They were like referred to as data analysts, or BI integrators and all those kind of stuff. But now the role of data engineering has been formalized, and where it's about integrating the software engineering principles as well to build those data processing system. Now that was the initial challenge which I was liking about, but with the advent of now AI systems, we need to feed those AI systems a lot of good quality data over the time, and to build that good quality data we need data engineering skills. So from the growth opportunities, it's getting very huge. At one point of time in future, it will be required that everyone kind of understand these principles, even if they are not solely working on data engineering products. But there is a lot of opportunities with the coming up of AI. You need to build these systems which can produce the data that can be fed into the AI, and then you can run those AI systems.
Yeah, I've also heard that most of the companies now actually depend on data engineering because the game is all about data nowadays. So
exactly, game is all about the data now.
Okay, so moving on, like you said, आपके schedule में there are times जब आपके interview schedule होते हैं. So what does one interviewer look for in a data engineering candidate to work in a big companies like Microsoft?
I'll actually frame that answer in 2 points. So it depends on who I'm interviewing. Okay, so there are certain roles which are like for a junior level data engineer, and then would be roles for about mid to senior level of data engineer. So the requirements are different, but the common things that we look in both of them is both of them should be good with the SQL. And from the SQL they should be able to not just like what a software engineer use for the SQL, like for create, read, update operations, but actually a data engineer uses SQL for different things. They want to get insights out of the data, which means they want to know about things like windowing, aggregations, and all those kind of stuff. So they should be able to build queries which are able to extract the required insight. So what I often ask in my interviews is about given a system and given this is the data, how do you extract a certain insight out of it? And then they have to write a SQL query of it, which by the way they have to do in a very small span of time, like maybe 10 to 15 minutes at max. So a couple of SQL based questions. Then similar thing, they could get asked to write the queries or the processing in a PySpark code as well. Next, this is actually kind of a myth that people think that a data engineering role would not require you to know about data structures and algorithms, but you actually need to know them. That is kind of a fundamental thing, which fundamental kind of framework of questions that we use to judge the problem solving abilities. And for that, we do ask some questions around DSA. They are not, they might not be very complicated in the sense like they might not involve about dynamic programming and graphs and those kind of stuff, because that does not get much used. But in a data engineering space, we do have need for processing arrays or strings. So the questions get asked around that. Preferably, people prefer to ask questions in language like Python or Scala, depending on the framework that the company is using for their Spark processing. But most of the times, like it's okay if you don't code just in Python or Scala. If you can code in Java or C++ or any of your language of choice. But those are the kind of questions that get asked. Next, if it's not for a junior role, for a junior role, we mainly focus on coding skills. We don't go into understanding how their overall architecture level understanding is. We don't go into that. But for a senior or mid to senior role, we would ask questions around what are their understanding about how we can optimize code using Spark optimizations, what kind of Spark optimization they know, or given a problem, like how would you optimize it. We can ask them questions around data modeling. We can ask them questions around when would you use a data lake, when would you use a data warehouse, or what is a data lake house, and where have you used it. So a lot of those questions around building that platform for processing the big data, and that is one of the things. And then the core thing that often get evaluated, not directly but through the responses that you are giving, is your growth mindset understanding. Do you have the capability, or do you have the willingness to learn new things, or are you just into a mindset where you are saying, okay, I know these things and this is what I'll work on. That usually does not work with the companies like this. They are looking for people who are ready to get into any kind of ready to get to learn any kind of skills that are needed for the job very quickly and adapt quickly to learning.
Yeah, very well explained, Pratik. This answer is going to help a lot of people watching this video. So before we move forward, I want to know if you have to give me 4 hot cloud tools, what it would be.
So top thing, a lot of the processing for the data cannot be done locally. Okay. That is one of the biggest challenges of the data engineering space as well. So you actually have to go to cloud and set up your infrastructure for processing, for storing there. So the top tools, the top one thing that we need is basically there are 4 things that we need. Okay, one is about where do we store the data. So it's about data storage, and mostly people are using like a object storage kind of system there, which in a product sense it would translate to AWS S3 or Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Yeah. Those are the 2 things. Like, and then we have cloud GCP, we have cloud storage. Next, we have to go about data processing. For that, it's about using whatever platform can help you write the code to process the data. That involves mostly it's done on Spark. So any kind of Spark based tool which involves like Azure Synapse Analytics or Databricks or those kind of things are crucial. Next, we have something which will help us orchestrate the processing. So because we want to run one process after the another, or it's like a sequence of processing which is running every day. Okay. So for that, we need something which can help us with the orchestration. For one of that, we have like in Azure, we have Data Factory. We do have very popular Airflow for that. And last thing, it's about how do we present the data, or what is the way that users can consume the data through. Yeah. So they can consume the data either through some kind of visualization tool or some kind of a BI tool. So for visualization, it's something like Microsoft Power BI. It's what kind of product we use. And there could be versions of it, but these 4 things are the crucial. And next, we have multiple things about other things as well, but these are the 4 crucial things that you should focus on.
Great, nice. So like you just tell a lot of things. So is there any certification that is needed for a data engineering candidate so to get a job?
Well, in my experience, in what I have felt in the industry, certifications don't actually much help. Unless you have a backing experience to prove that. So if you have an experience in data engineering technologies, if you have already worked on such projects, then certification would be something like just kind of actually like literally a certification that okay, this person knows these things. Okay, but if you don't have any projects which you have worked on which can demonstrate that okay, these technologies, just the certification won't help you. Okay,
it's the practical knowledge that matters at the end of the day. Nice. So that brings us to the last question. If you have to rate your experience as a data engineer in Microsoft, so what would you rate it on the scale of 1 to 10?
I would absolutely rate it 10. I have no doubts about it, and that's because it transitioning into this role actually I started loving my job more. This space is very challenging. It's very, very, very exciting at this point of time. And I'm really, really looking forward to working more into this.
Nice. We get a lot of questions that they want to become data engineers, and this field really excites them, but it is very difficult for them to from where to start and where to end. Yeah. So I hope this video will help you, and I also believe this: if you do something you love, you do it well, and when you do it well, you get paid well.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So the last segment we have planned for you is myth versus reality. So I will give you some statement and you have to tell us that if it is true or false.
Okay.
So the first statement is data engineers don't need coding skills.
They absolutely need coding skills. They need a lot of coding skills, and they need a lot of system level understanding as well. Not just the coding skills, but they also need to understand how do I build a platform, or how do I build a system which can process large scale data.
So it's a true statement.
It's a true statement.
Okay. The second statement is Python is more important than SQL.
No, actually, it's both. Both of them have their own place. SQL is more, what something you can. SQL is like English in the data language. Okay. So no matter how many tools or how many languages have come over the time, SQL still remains. Everyone still understands SQL, and many of the tools are actually built around SQL now. SQL is here to stay. SQL is what the business people or who are not actually the working on directly on the code, they will using it. But person who's directly working on code maybe more of using Python. Okay. As a matter of fact, in our products, right, we use both. We write SQL code within the Python frameworks that we have.
Okay, so it's false for you.
It's false.
Okay, so the last one is data engineering is just a fancy name for ETL.
This is actually a false statement. Absolutely, it was there was a time when this was the case, but there is actually a one article which was released in 2017 by Maxine, who is one of the co-founder of Airflow. The article is the rise of data engineer. Just go read that article. You'll realize where is this field coming from and why is it like becoming such an important thing. And no, it's not just ETL. There is a lot of things around it. To make that processing happen, to make that process like transforming the data, storing the data, or like delivering that data is a lot of work. It's not just false.
Great. So this was it for this podcast. I really hope you like this podcast, and if you like this podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel until we meet you guys again. So, and thank you so much, Pratik. It was
Thank
nice
you so much.
meeting
Thank you
you,
so much for having me.
and yeah.